Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a weekly program every Sunday here on HORUFADHI Media, where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program and where you can find other exclusive programs such as Behind the Scenes and Mahahi Salah, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into the headlines. We kick off in Somalia, where authorities in the Northern Autonomous Region of Somaliland are engaged in a battle with unionist locals in the city of Laascaanood, which continues to rage on for nearly 2 weeks. Evidence collected by journalists and locals in the city showcased mortars fired by Somaliland military forces landing in hospitals, schools, and residential homes, killing dozens of children and women. Now, traditional elders in the region of Sol, Sanag, and Ain, commonly abbreviated as the SSC region, unanimously rejected the secessionist agenda being pushed by authorities in Hargeisa, opting instead to come under direct control of the federal government until Somali constitution was completed, and this was released as a statement following a 7 to 8 day meeting of traditional elders in the city of Laascaanood. Now, fighting began shortly after this meeting, with Somaliland leader Musa Bihi being accused of using brutal force and indiscriminate shelling of civilians to subjugate the population of the town to no avail. Now, conversely, Somaliland has argued that the region was hijacked by Al-Shabaab and other international terrorist organizations, and as a result, Somaliland claims to be fighting militants, according to its Chief of Army General Nur Tani, despite the lack of evidence presented. Now, President Bihi said in a recent statement following a speech that his government was working to send a peace delegation to the SSC leadership in an attempt to find a political settlement to the conflict, denying that his forces were currently attacking the city. However, only hours later, video emerged of the city being shelled with tanks as homes were destroyed yet again. And on Sunday, which is today, Somaliland forces continue the shelling of the city, with solar panels at the main hospital being damaged as a result of shrapnel and shelling. However, reports from the city on Sunday indicate that shellings have reduced slightly. However, clearly there's more damage being done on hospitals and residential homes. Now, similarly today, one of the main subclans of the Somaliland region, the Garhajis subclan that helped find the Somaliland project, has released a statement condemning the violence being spewed by the Bihi regime. Traditional elders accused Bihi of transforming Somaliland into a dictatorship, stating that his approach to Laascaanood violated both local and international law. They went further, stating that Bihi is liable for all crimes committed in Laascaanood, while also clarifying that the subclan is not part of any so-called delegation by Bihi, stating the lack of trust as of the reason. Now, the leadership of the subclan have stated that there was a set of agreements laying the foundations of Somaliland between the subclans of the region, and the Bihi government seems to have broken this, which has resulted in a lack of trust now existing between this particular subclan and the government of Musa Bihi. Now, conversely, the 33-member committee set up by traditional elders in the SSC region also released a statement denying any peace talks with the Bihi regime, instead highlighting that Somaliland continues to bomb the city, despite claims made by the Bihi government in his speech only a few days ago. Now, the international community has widely condemned the violence, with Somalia's international partners calling on an immediate ceasefire, but refraining from any condemnation of any particular side, which has drawn criticism from the Somali community worldwide. Now, the federal government in Mogadishu has condemned the violence and called on an immediate ceasefire. Now, during a speech after Friday prayers at the presidential palace Villa Somalia, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud called on Somaliland to respect the will of the locals in the SSC region rather than using violence to subjugate them. He went on further to say that his government and the federal government of Somalia does not recognize or accept any form of secessionism from Somaliland, yet they do not use violence to subjugate supporters of the ideology. Now we move over to Ethiopia, where dramatic diplomatic scenes rocked the African Union summit. A senior Israeli diplomat has been removed from the African Union's annual summit in Ethiopia as a dispute over Israel's observer status to the bloc has escalated. A video posted on social media showed security personnel walking Ambassador Sharon Bar-Lee out of the auditorium during the opening ceremony of the summit in Addis Ababa on Saturday. Now, Eba Kolondo, the spokesman for the African Union's chairman, said the diplomat was removed because she was not duly accredited Israeli ambassador to Ethiopia, the official who was expected. Now, an African Union official letter told AFP news agency that the diplomat who was asked to leave had not been invited to the meeting, with a non-transferable invitation issued only to Israel's ambassador to the African Union, Alili Ad Musa. Now, the move was swiftly condemned by Israel. Now, Israel blamed the incident on South Africa and Algeria, two key nations in the 55-country bloc African Union, saying that they were holding the African Union hostage and were driven by hate. Now, Vincent Magwenya, spokesman for the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, present at the summit, demanded that Israel substantiate their claim, after the latter accused arch-foe Iran of orchestrating the move with the help from Algeria and South Africa. Now, South Africa rejected the claim, saying Israel's application for observer status at the African Union had not been decided upon by the bloc. The dispute over Israel's observer status to the bloc was set in motion in July 2021, when then chairman of the African Union, Musa Faki Mohammed, accepted unilaterally the move to accept the country with the observer status. Now, the move triggered an uproar from a number of member states demanding the status be withdrawn. Now, the protest was spearheaded by South Africa and Algeria, two powerful members who argued that the decision flew in the face of the African Union statement supporting the occupied Palestinian territories. Now, South Africa's governing party has historically been a strong supporter of the Palestinian cause. In a statement on Sunday, the African National Congress ANC, which compares Israel to an apartheid state, gave clear support for Bali's ousting. The ANC said her removal was aimed at thwarting an attempt to undermine the current sitting African Union summit from considering a report that was supposed to guide discussions on whether Israel must be granted an observer status. Now, Palestine already has observer status at the African Union, and pro-Palestinian languages typically featured in a statement delivered at the African Union's annual summit. In February last year, the African Union decided to suspend a debate on whether to suspend Israel's observer status for fear that the vote would have created an unprecedented rift in the 55-member body. But then newly elected chairman, Macky Sall, said the vote would have been postponed until 2023 and that a committee had been set up with the goal of consulting with member states and building consensus on the matter. It had taken nearly 20 years of diplomatic efforts for Israel to win observer status. It had previously held a role at the Organization of African Unity. Still, it was long thwarted in its attempts to regain it after the OAU was disbanded in 2002 and replaced by the African Union. Now, over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where M23 rebels killed at least 20 men and raped scores of women and girls in the east in November, Amnesty International said in a report on Friday. The militia stepped up its offences in regions near the borders of Rwanda and Uganda last year, dismissed accusations saying they were part of a smear campaign. The reported death toll was much lower than estimates from the United Nations, which said in December the rebels executed at least 131 in reprisal killings in a campaign of murder, rape and looting in Kashishe and the Bamboo villages. Amnesty said it interviewed survivors and witnesses who described the group of M23 fighters going house to house in Kashishe, similarly killing every adult male they found and subjecting scores of women to rape, including gang rape. Now, based on the testimony, Amnesty estimated the M23 killed at least 20 men and raped at least 66 women and girls, mainly in Kashishe between November 21st and November 30th. And the M23 spokesman Willie Ngumba dismissed the report. There were no serious investigations because it did not come to the field, he told the news agency Reuters, adding that none of his soldiers committed rape. Now, Congo's government spokesman did not immediately respond to the request for comments. The UN peacekeeping mission in Eastern Congo also did not respond to the request for comments. Now, Amnesty said its findings were based on research conducted on the ground in M23 occupied territory. Now, Congo's army has been locked in heavy fighting since May last year with M23, which is waging its most sustained offensive since 2012 to 2013 insurrection that seized vast swathes of territory. The conflict has sparked a diplomatic crisis between Congo and neighboring Rwanda, which Kinshasa accuses of backing the rebels, including by sending its own troops into eastern Congo. Rwanda, of course, denies any involvement. Now, M23 and its predecessor groups have claimed to defend Tutsi interest against ethnic Hutu militias, whose leaders participated in the 1994 Rwanda genocide of more than 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Now, Amnesty called on the Congolese authorities to follow through on a pledge to investigate alleged crimes and hold perpetrators to account. Now, staying at the Congo's state auditor has demanded an additional $17 billion of investment from a 2008 infrastructure for minerals deal with Chinese investors that is currently being renegotiated, a report seen by international media showed. The Chinese ambassador in Congo said on Friday it was shocked by the state auditor's report, calling it full of prejudice and not corresponding to reality. Now, the president of Congo has been revisiting the deal struck by his predecessor Joseph Kabila, under which the Sino-UL and China Railway Group Limited agreed to build roads and hospitals in exchange for a 68% stake in Sika Mines, a cobalt and copper joint venture with Congo's state mining company Gécamines. Now, under this deal, the Chinese investors committed to spending $3 billion in infrastructure projects, but the state auditor, Inspection General des Finances, or IGF, demanded that the commitment be increased to 20 billion to reflect the value of the mining concessions that the state mining company contributed to the deal. The Chinese embassy said the deal was a great example of a win-win partnership, using catchphrase of the president when he talks about Congo's ventures with other countries. Neither the embassy nor Psycho Mines specifically addressed the IGF's criticism and demands. So far, Psycho Mines has only spent $822 million in infrastructure investments, according to the IGF report. The auditor also called for an immediate $1 billion investment from Psycho Mines and a commitment to 50% of the workforce on infrastructure projects being Congolese. Among a list of 16 demands, the IGF called for a renegotiation of the convention to adjust and balance the duties and benefits of both parties and bring them into line with the value of their respective contributions. And the auditor also demanded that the Geico Mines be given a bigger stake in Psycho Mines. Now, Geico Mines is the national mining company, and Psycho Mines, of course, is the Chinese. It currently has only 32% stakeholding. Now, Congolese Finance Minister Nicolas Kazadi told the international media last month that the government expected to reach an agreement with Psycho Mines deal this year. Now, Congo in September suspended a tax break on Psycho Mines, exonerating the firm from paying import taxes. Two officials told the international media suspension was still active. On the orders of the President Said Kais Saied, Tunisian authorities ordered the departure of Esther Lynch, head of the European Trade Union Confederation, the presidency said in a statement. Lynch, and I quote, took part in demonstrations organized by the UGTT, Trade Union Federation, and made comments that constituted blatant interference with Tunisia's internal affairs, the statement said. It added that she had 24 hours to leave the country, where she was considered a persona non grata. Earlier in the day, Lynch had given a speech to thousands of people at a demonstration organized by UGTT in Tunisia's second city, Sfax, one of several protests around the country over the faltering economy and the arrest of a top trade union official. Speaking through an interpreter, Lynch said she had come to deliver a message of solidarity from 45 million workers from Europe. We say to governments, hands off our trade unions, free our leaders, she said. The government must sit down and negotiate with the UGTT for a solution to Tunisia's woes, she added. The demonstrations were partially organized to demand the release of senior UGT official Anis Kabi, who was arrested on January 31st following a strike by toll booth staff. The union has described this arrest as a blow to union work in violation of union rights. It came a year and a half after Said sacked the government and seized almost total power in the birthplace of the 2011 pro-democracy uprisings that rocked the Arab world. Since his moves, which opponents have called a coup, he has been repeatedly accused of dragging the country into authoritarianism. Kabi faces trial from February 23rd on charges of using his position to harm public authorities. Uthman Jolalu, the UGTT's deputy chief, told demonstrators today, any union member can be sacked simply for expressing an opinion. Now, staying in Tunisia, Tunisian police on Monday detained two prominent critics of Said, the head of the radio station that has broadcast criticism of the president, part of a wave of arrests targeting politicians and other critics of the government. Police raided the house of Nouruddin Bahiri, a senior official in the biggest opposition party, Ennahda, and a prominent critic of Said, and took him away, his lawyer Samir Dilu said by phone. The police stormed Nouruddin's house and assaulted his wife and arrested him, he told the media. Authorities also raided the house of Musuqi FM head Nouruddin Boutar, whose radio station has frequently broadcast criticism of Said, and arrested him after searching his home, his lawyer Dalila bin Mubrak said. Police also detained political activist and lawyer Lazar Akremi, lawyers and opposition activists said. Since Saturday, police have detained numerous figures that have voiced opposition to Said or sought to mobilize protests against him. They included a prominent business leader with close ties across the political spectrum, a former finance minister, another former senior Ennahda official, two judges, and a former diplomat. Lawyers said they were arrested on suspicion of assaulting state security. Neither the police, interior ministry, nor the prime minister's office have publicly commented on the arrests or responded to requests for comment. United Islamist Party condemned the kidnapping, as it put it, of Said's opponents. The expansion of the coup authority in harassing opposition figures, journalists and businessmen and trade unionists is evidence of confusion and inability to face crises, it said in a statement. Tunisia rejected any statement from the United States and international partners considering foreign interference and harm to the country's sovereignty. And this comes after the United States raised concern over a recent wave of arrests of these critics. We're able to diagnose our problems, President Kais Saied said, adding that whoever wants to help Tunisians should return our looted money and drop the accumulated debts. The United States on Wednesday said it was deeply concerned by the reported arrests of political figures, business leaders, trade unionists, and journalists in Tunisia. And that is the top stories on the African program this week. Please tune in next week for all the headlines across the African continent.